First off, my name is Jodi Marie. I go by Jodi Marie. My brand is Lady J Empowers. A little bit about me. I grew up in a small town north of Jacksonville, Florida, and I didn't know that my trauma started at the age of 3 until about 40 years later. But that's what happened. So at 3 years old, my dad left and he never came back. So I never knew who my dad was. My mom did her best. I remember she cleaned houses, and so that's probably why I don't like cleaning as much anymore. But anyway, I just remember it was humble beginnings. I remember being on her bicycle, and we didn't have a car. We didn't have a lot of money. I remember carrying clothes on the bike to go wash and dry clothes at the local laundromat. And these are just memories. I don't remember the years that tied into every little thing, but they're just memories that I do have as a young child. At the age of 6, my mom had found another man that she fell in love with, and they got married. What I didn't know is that would be the beginning of something I had never seen before, which was domestic violence. He was a narcissistic, come to find out later, schizophrenic. And that's what I lived with the rest of my life until I moved out. She endured it. She accepted it. So a lot of what Brooke was saying, now that I know what I know, there was generational trauma involved. And I think she just liked to be loved. She thought that was what love was. So I'm not sure what led to that, but that's kind of what it looked like. She was an alcoholic. I just remember her drinking a lot. We never had like real good conversations. There wasn't a lot of showing up for me that I remember. At the age of 7, I remember she came into my room crying and bleeding. And that was the day that I lost what would have been my sister. A lot of things happened after that. I won't go into every little detail, but what I will say is our trauma can become our superpower if we choose to allow it. As I went into the military, I took all my trauma with me. And one thing that I get to mentor other young people going into the military on is I say, do what you can to face your trauma before you go in. Because what I didn't know as I was running away, that's exactly what I was doing at that time, trying to find safety, like Brooke mentioned. I was running away, but I was taking my baggage with me. I was taking all that trauma with me. I was taking the anger with me. I was taking all of it with me. And it just accumulated into the military where I allowed people to take advantage of me. Um, there was some military sexual trauma involved, but I kept going and I kept putting on the face and I kept coping because that's what I was taught. That was what was ingrained in me at an early age. As Brooke mentioned, you couldn't have told me a long time ago that I would be doing what I'm doing today. About 15 years ago, I got certified as a personal trainer and nutritionist, but that was because I'd had 5 surgeries. And the nutrition part was because when my mom was on medications, some of those medications were making her suicidal, and I did not understand it, did not make sense to me. So I took nutrition and pharmacology back in about 2007, 2008 in order to help get her off some of those medications that were not working well for her. Now, like I said, my mom loved to feel loved, right? And I have seen now in my life how that has played out as well, where I've sought external validation the majority of my life. So I look back now and I understand more of where she was. I did not like it, but I understand it. I also see how some of that played a part in my life as I continued to get older and not know that these things were subconsciously ingrained in my DNA. In 2007, my mom called me. I was stationed in Mildenhall in England at RAF Mildenhall. I was an instructor out there. And it was on her birthday. And she informed me that she had contracted HIV at that time. The person who gave it to her was someone who she had been dating, because by this time, the other man that she had married had passed away due to a drug overdose. But this person, he was younger. He was someone she accepted into her life. She thought she could help him because he was also an alcoholic, and by that time she had been recovering. But one thing that I know full force is you cannot help people that don't want to be helped. No one could have helped me until I was ready to raise my hand and say, I'm ready to be helped. And no one can help anyone else until they get to that point as well. What I tell people now is I hope you don't wait as long as I did. Because by the time I got into therapy and went through a therapy modality called EMDR, I had 40 years of compound trauma between my upbringing, between before I went into the military, some things had happened, while I was in the military for 15 years, and then even after I was out of the military. All of these things were playing in my life as programming over and over and over. So, when I tell people now, we talk about brain and neuroscience because I dove into that a lot more later on as I was going through my journey. Our brains are like our CPU. They are our central operating system for everything else. I started studying this as well because I have a lot of chronic pain in my body. And I started noticing how trauma and stress can heighten the pain in our body. So when I have people that have, you know, arthritis everywhere, myofibromalgia, sorry about that, microfibromyalgia, there's other things that we endure that are really operating from our brain. So I learned later on through the trauma therapies that I was in. I went through EMDR, went through that for 9 months. And then I went through another one called neuro emotional technique, which uses your body to tell the story. I went through that for a few months as well. But it wasn't until I came in contact with the founder of the Cortina Method that I really understood we don't have to relive our trauma in order to retrain our brains. We just have to be able to tap into the subconscious, which is what that method tends to do. So, in 1 to 2 sessions, we can actually unlock the 40 years of trauma that took me 9 months and then another 4 months through EMDR and NET. That was a game changer for me because I know the pain that I endured going through all those things, and I don't want other people to have to go through that. It can be very tough. At the end of EMDR, I was ready to check out. It was too much. I remember having sessions and coming out of those sessions, just sitting in my car for an hour after the session, like, "Huh, what just happened?" So I'm grateful that I've been able to help people who are actually going through EMDR on the backside of that when they need to talk through things because I did not have that. Now, I had a great therapist, but I didn't know how to communicate the things that were coming out. I didn't know how to communicate to my husband and my daughter why mom was acting the way she was acting. So these are some of the things that I endured through that time. I started building my first business back in 2017. We were stationed in Okinawa, Japan at the time, and it was great. But what I tell people now is when I was in my best physical shape, I was mentally falling apart because what I ended up doing unknowingly was I was using the gym as a coping mechanism. I stayed busy. So the busyness that we endure, a lot of that is because we are not willing to face the things that we need to face. I'll tell you right now, this journey is not easy, but coming out on the other side of it, and I still have a long way to go, you guys. I'm still doing the work. It has been completely worth it. I got baptized in 2019. That's actually the same year I started writing my first book. I didn't know at that time that getting closer to God was going to be very difficult. It was going to make my life difficult. But what I know now is it was necessary. When we left Okinawa, Japan, I didn't know why I was coming back to Jacksonville, Florida, but now I know that I had to come back here in order to heal. Because had I gone somewhere else, I most likely wouldn't have faced all the things that I needed to face. What I tell people now is when you have that pull, just be willing to step into it. It's not easy, but that's why, as Brooke said, we need community. I am the first one to isolate myself. And that's why I always tell people check in on your strong people because we are the ones who won't tell the world what's going on. But I'm learning now that the more I share, the more I've been able to help others. So I continue to do that. And the more I speak, the more I heal. Sharing our stories is super important. And everyone has one. We see what we see, but we don't see what led that person to where they are. I get this a lot when I speak to homeless people. I ask them what their story is because I know they have one, but we all do. As business owners, we tend to have other people just kind of look at us and just say, oh, you're just a personal trainer, or you're just this, or you're just a life coach, you're just this, right? But no, we're not. Because for most of us, there's a reason we came to this juncture in life. So today I want to share with you something that I do a lot, and that is when I'm dealing with stress or anxiety, I give myself, like Brooke said, permission to take a step back, take a deep breath, and allow myself to feel whatever I need to feel in that moment. Now, that was not something that I was able to do in my childhood, and it was not something I was able to do in the military because I was in a male dominated career field. I worked on the flight line on C 130 aircraft for the majority of my career. And then when I went medical, I had to be a leader and I had to still act like nothing was wrong. It was a mask that I wore my entire life. So now I take a step back and I allow myself to feel those things because also, as Brooke mentioned, I have not felt safe in my life the majority of my life because I didn't have anyone who ever made me feel safe. But I also didn't allow people to make me feel safe because I always felt like they were going to let me down anyway. So it's these self awareness things that we have to be aware of. So as we go through this journey, it's important to get more self aware because we can't change anything if we don't know it exists. I was a lab tech for a while, I was a medical lab tech. And I used to tell people, and even when I'm doing my health coaching and nutrition coaching, I always ask the women, especially if they're over 35, when the last time they got their labs was. Because even with that, it's important to know what's there. Are our hormones working correctly? So mental health is no different. We have to have the self awareness. It can be scary. I get it. But we must do the work because I have a daughter as well. And I do not ever want her to carry on the trauma that she didn't enter this world asking for. I have three questions that I ask myself when I'm kind of getting into a time of what the heck is going on in my life or when I'm allowing certain things. Because I tell people also, I'm a recovering people pleaser and a recovering control freak. So if I can do it, anybody can, right? I ask myself, what am I allowing? Why am I allowing it? But the third question is the important one because this is the action step. What am I going to do about it? The reason I say that's most important is because we can listen to all the podcasts, read all the books. I mean, people that read my book, I love that they read it, but I'm like, are you going to utilize the tools? Because if you don't, it's just a book that you've read. So it's the action part that matters. Knowing I had all this trauma or knowing I had some trauma is one thing. But had I not gone the extra mile and gone through the therapies that I went through, I would not be the person I am today. And even now, I'm getting my PhD in psychology and counseling in order to become an even better coach, a better listener, a better communicator, emotional control, things like that, right? I have a framework that I want to share with you, and it's something that I've been sharing for a while. I love acronyms because they help me remember. So the framework is STEP, STEP, because I say we can't be mentally stuck if we're moving forward. The other acronym is SHINE, because once we've gotten through our trauma, and we're learning how to heal, we become a bright light in the world if we allow it. Step is seek help. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help. We're not always taught that because a lot of us have been taught not to ask for help. So that can be a difficult step, but it is the first step. And if you are willing to do that, I want to acknowledge you today because those of us who have are showing you what can happen later. T is trust the process. It's easy to doubt, but trust the process. Evaluate the impact of every traumatic experience you can remember. The biggest one is the P, and that's progressing forward. We can stay stuck or we can move forward. We can live in the rearview mirror, which is smaller, but we'll get in a car accident if we do that. Or we can look out the front windshield. Sign is set boundaries. That was the biggest thing in my life that I had to do was start setting healthy boundaries. And it didn't look like everybody wanted it to look. I had to pull away from people that I never planned on pulling away from. But that's what I had to do in order to do the next one, which was heal from within. Every healing process starts here. Here. We have to be willing to heal from within. The I is identify the source. When you're feeling certain things, what is making you feel that way? When I feel abandoned by people, what makes me feel that way? Now I know it stems from the 3-year-old me, but that's not now. I don't have to feel that anymore. The N is nullify the enemy within. As a faith based practitioner, I always say, I know this full force. The enemy does not want any of us to step into what he has for us. So the enemy is going to do everything. It's the lies within. We're not worthy. We're not deserving. We have done this and that and the other, but that's okay because we've already been forgiven. So it's time to nullify the enemy. And then, and only then, once we've done all those things, we can enter into a new journey, which is where I'm at now and what I'm so grateful to have accomplished along the way. Now, I will say wholeheartedly, I am not there yet. And I don't know, I might not get all the way there. But what I will say is every single day that I'm allowed to wake up in the morning and be grateful for another day, I know that there's a purpose on my life. And I will keep going. Because while I don't know the entire plan, I know there is one. And I will keep going forward for that. So that's the framework that I want to leave with you. You guys, look, this journey is not going to be all nice and frilly, but it will be worth it. I appreciate our host for today for allowing me to come on here and be part of this mission and this event. I look forward to connecting with each one of you even more, especially our other speakers. I would love for you to go visit my link tree. I have different links there. It's Lady J Empowers. Everything that I do is Lady J Empowers. I have a community inside of a platform known as Convene Communities where we connect and collaborate. We refer each other. So I love working with other coaches. And I also have a 2-for-1 special going on the first version of my book, Reclaim Your Life. So I ask you to come to my website, which is scrolling across the screen, go to the store, and if you purchase one, I send you 2.